The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Good Mondays here. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Another week to go. Then it is game week, Nebraska, UTEP, and let's get to it. 489-1240, 489-1240, number to get in. 800-825-5865, toll free. And as always, we ask you to like and subscribe. Can watch the show on YouTube with Hail Varsity, the YouTube channel, or Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Hope you had a weekend. It was fun. It was entertaining, a little wet where we were at, but so far so good. And your Saturdays and Sundays will soon not be dormant with pigskin. We'll get our starting five shout-outs going on. Tim Verghese, Inside Nebraska Rivals, going to be with us in 15 minutes. Of course, the thought that David Sanders was off to Rocky Top turned out true, but Nebraska will no doubt keep the door open, and we'll dive into Nebraska and where they've been and where they can go on the recruiting front. A lot of that has to do with how things look for many Saturdays under Matt Rule. We'll hear from Coach Rule as he was available after the second major scrimmage. Some thoughts there. Mr. Blackshirt back with us. Charlie McBride, a Monday with Charlie in about an hour. And then Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFLer. Jay, part of that Blackshirt Hour on a Monday. 489-1240. Two things we got to highlight. Elijah Herbel hitting a drive 300 yards.
Oh, it's going up every single time.
It is. It's 305 by 420, okay? And NCZ, our friend in the stream, we'll just call him the Tat Man, sent a shot of homemade, am I right? Homemade tattoo on Twitter that says Hail Varsity. It looks like it's his right back calf or side calf. NCZ does not skip leg day, well, compared to me anyway.
Yeah, let's get this pulled up for the stream.
And let us show folks in the stream of NCZ, a loyal listener that went all in with the ink. Can you pull it up?
I have to do one thing.
Okay, so Elijah's going to pull it up.
I thought I had it ready to go, and then it's telling me no, I can't.
It says Hail Varsity. So appreciate you tuning in, NCZ. And the quote tweet here on Twitter says, late night self-tattoo, touch up later, not a pro. But pretty cool. So here is the tattoo. We're not asking you or advocating you get tattoos. Although, when we were in East Lansing, we did see a pretty cool Husker tattoo on a gentleman's right bicep. This is NCZ's Hail Varsity. So it's not quite Yellowstone branding oneself, and that's okay. We're not asking you to self-mutilate or do art. But this is cool.
We could.
Speaking of tattoos, you are in the tattoo league, Elijah.
Yeah,
your draft is tonight.
No, so a different league. Got a couple different leagues I'm in.
This one is just piercing.
No. This one, I don't think we have a punishment in this one. I don't think. We have a prize.
Do you have to get a tattoo this year?
My buddy Jacob, who I think sometimes checks us out in the stream, he is due to get the L tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're still working on getting the tattoo artist to the draft.
Okay, so you'll do it during the draft?
And we'll do the tattoo of the L, which he wants to do on the top of his foot.
Okay.
At the draft. So that's what we're planning on there. That's the tattoo league. This is just the well, we'll get to NCZ here in a second. He comments in the stream. But this is the college football fantasy league tonight, 7 o'clock, featuring homebrewed beer at the draft. So cannot miss that one either. Gotta get in there. NCZ, he chimes in and says, lots of beer that night whenever he did the self-tattoo.
Hey, it looks good. It was legible. It was straight.
Hey, here's a thought. Instead of staking a beer bets this year, when the Friday forecast...
No, we're not betting tattoos.
I was thinking we could get NCZ here to give one of us a tattoo.
No, not at all.
No?
No.
No fun.
No fun? You can't show off tattoos.
Yeah, what if it's a steak and a beer? You get a tattoo of a steak and a beer on you?
That'd be okay, actually.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
I don't have anywhere to put it, though.
Your entire body. Your body's a canvas.
Listen, I don't wear tank tops for a reason.
If your body wasn't already a work of art, this is the way to make it.
My body's more bearable to see, all right? But it's still nothing that anyone wants to see. It's $200 on the dresser, promise you. I take my shirt off in the bedroom. It's a fine. It's a fine by her. We won't get into her pricing.
NCZ says he's good with he'll tattoo a steak and a beer on us, but he says, I doubt you'll be happy with the results. That's kind of the point.
Yeah, we'll keep it to the actual steak and beer. Let's get to our starting five shout-outs. We'll hear from Coach Rule in a moment. Black Hills Brennan in first. He says, I'm back. Good for you, Black Hills Brennan. Justin in second in the stream. You want to be part of the starting five and beyond? Just jump in, like and subscribe. Hail Varsity YouTube. It don't cost you nothing. Justin second. Uncle Jimmy is third. Patrick checks in four. Sal is here for fifth. Arlo, formerly known as Broderick, says, I'm in. Jack says, happy Monday, fellas. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, is in. The other Dave, along with Larry, is in, says, I like Mondays. Thank you, Taylor Martinez. Weston is here. Coach Brandon checks in, along with the real Matthew. Mr. Erickson is here. Grateful Red is here. Life of Lincoln is the first five still available. Life of Lincoln, you're not quite in the top five, but you're all good. Thanks for checking us out. Ronnie is here. Rule the Day says Husker football next week. Makes this Monday much better. Absolutely. Rule the Day. Eat beef says I hate Mondays. I like that. Anonymous here says Jeff Sims didn't win the ASU starting job, so we can always transfer back. Brent is here, and CZ making his comments known. Jeff, along with KG. Cliff in Florida says, hey, crazy people, it's 98 degrees in Florida. Aggressively average. Says, let's have a Monday. Elijah, the other Elijah here. Andrew is in, along with Ryan. Ryan, good to have you. Thanks for checking us out. Saturday, chasing three. Rule just wants to tie games, apparently. Good work. MB Husker 13 says, first time in. MB, thank you. Tim is here as well. And you've got... I have a Bud Select crown tattooed on my shoulder from South Padre. Spring break. Eat Beef says, not my finest hour.
We get the Cornhead Lager logo tattooed.
That'd be all right. If I were to get a tattoo, it would be, my wife's nickname's the Bunny, so it'd be some sort of bunny. Junior's nickname, and he hates this, is the Monkey. So I'd get a monkey on the other.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
No, that'd be good. You should do that.
40 pounds ago, I was the Penguin. Apparently, that was the nickname Coach Brett gave me.
No, that'd be a good Christmas gift to each of them. Instead of getting them anything, you just get yourself a tattoo and say, this is for you.
Their ultimate wish for Christmas is, hey, guys, I'm moving. Yes! Hokey Skur 19 says, love the show, GBR. Hokey Skur 19, we love you. Appreciate it. Let's hear from Matt Rule and get locked in with some thoughts from Saturday's scrimmage. We will fast forward. I mean, not to bury the lead, Javen Wright out indefinitely. That sucks. The bright side is Nebraska seems to be deep at middle linebacker, but you want Javen to get cleared and be back. The kids missed 2020. The kids missed 2021.
Sounds like he's having a strong fall camp, summer and fall camp.
Big-time ball player. Dad Toby was an incredible safety for the Big Reds, several years in the NFL with the Rams. The quarterback news we'll get to as well. But how about we get the word here on the scrimmage rules, thoughts, cut 11.
Cut 10 or 11?
Cut 10 first.
Yes.
You know what? It's funny you asked me that because I told the team out there, I usually will not say anything after a scrimmage because I've learned over the years, like, let me watch the tape. And I said something today, and I'll say it to you. I told them, I feel like they're really close to being a good team, but they're not there yet. And here's what I mean. You know, the first team offense, first 2 drives wasn't great, and all of a sudden, 14-play drive, next drive, 11-play drive. So you're converting third downs, you're moving the ball, you're creating plays, yet the defense not letting a big play emerge, right? Just, you know, making them methodically move the ball down the field, getting pressure on the quarterback, yet there's good protection. So it was like iron sharpening iron truly. You get down in the red zone, though, they hold the offense to a field goal. And we're going to need a touchdown to win. And so I feel like, you know, the offense was a procedure penalty at a crucial moment or like a big play away from having a great day. But they got in their own way. The first team offense didn't turn the ball over. They protected the ball the entire day. But I think they had like 4 or 5 penalties, right? Like, and we're trying to do some advanced things. We're trying to go on 2. We're trying to, you know, see what you're in and play more NFL style football. And we weren't able to handle that in crucial moments today where we would jump and hurt ourselves. So there's a lot of good things happening way, way further ahead than where we've been. Yet it just isn't to the level we want. We got 2 weeks to buff it out and get it right.
So listen, and they'll use the 2 weeks to air quote buff it out, and that shouldn't surprise you about a team that is some parts veteran, some parts young, and they're going to be inconsistent, right? They're in their own way, and that has been Nebraska football's identity. Period, for the last several years. And it's going to take more than 2 years to eradicate that. But how much of that can you get the old whiteout or the eraser on? And they're making progress. The fact that the first team offense didn't have any turnovers, that's big. The fact that it's 3rd and 2 and now it's 3rd and 7, presumably because there's a false start penalty, that's problematic, and that'll make Nebraskans pull their hair out. It'll make coaches pull their hair out. It's going to piss players off. They're not trying to do it, but you can't have that, and it happens to programs. It does, but it happens to some programs more than others.
Yeah, and it helps. I think back. This is the kind of example I use. I'm going to use in this situation. I think back to Alabama's game against Auburn last season. And Alabama was a team that throughout that entire game could not stop getting in their own way. They did not look, first off, in the first half like they showed up were ready to play a rivalry football game. No. They didn't have the juice. In the second half, they were moving the ball, but shooting themselves in the foot, not being able to finish off drives. You think back to the last play, the miracle touchdown from Jalen Milroe, the back corner of the end zone. Like, they had the ball 4th and 24. Is that right? Is that what they are whenever they had that play?
They should not have won.
They should not have won because they got themselves
in the way.
a
chance at Georgia.
And that's where I'm getting here is like, what bailed out Alabama on the day? There's going to be days where you get in the way. Do you have the guys that can step in and overcome that from both a mental and a physical standpoint? Do you have the guys that can mentally lock in when it's winning time and say, hey, we've shot ourselves in the foot for 3 quarters today, but now we still have a chance to go win this football game. Let's go out and do it from a mental standpoint. And then B, from a physical standpoint, do you have the guys that are talented enough to go out and do that? It's a 2-part question to me whenever it's like, can Nebraska get out of their own way? Like, there are just going to be moments in games, mistakes happen. Like, football players are humans too. They're going to make mistakes throughout a football game. There's a difference between doing it in one game a year like Alabama did last year or doing it throughout the season as Nebraska has the past couple of years. But when those moments come, does Nebraska have the guys on their roster physically and mentally that can overcome those moments?
Cut 2, more from Rule on the scrimmage. Just side note, there should be a starting quarterback named sometime this week. We'll hear from Rule Friday. We'll hear from Mr. Foley tomorrow. But Rule on post-scrimmage number 2, part 2 of this.
You know, what concerns me at times is our second group, you know, as our next group. They keep acting like they're the second group, and they're supposed to act like they're the first group. I think the second team offense might have had 4 turnovers today. Now, they also had some big plays. So it's that group that you know, to me, hey, we need you guys to come along, okay? And then I saw a lot of potential from the third groups. I saw a lot of guys. I challenged our staff in front of everyone. Hey, go watch the tape and figure out the things that, you know, make sure we're playing the right guys, because when you're not a great team last year, what you end up having is you're having a lot of guys who kind of play because they can kind of execute. When you want to make the jump to being a good team, it's everyone starts to execute. So now it's the guy who can execute and then go make the big play. And who's making those plays. And so I really like where we are. I really do. I really like where we are, except I don't like some of the second unit production today. And the offense has to clean up a couple more procedural penalties if they want to be the type of team like that, can play grown man football, can do the things that you do on Sundays, on Saturdays.
So, very honest assessment from Coach Rule, still 2 weeks, and they could have performed real well, and he still is the last guy. You really got to earn it to get a pat on the back and public praise from Matt Rule. He just doesn't hand it out. In Halloween, where you ring the doorbell and here's a handful of candy. It's not Rule. And he's pretty specific. He's a taskmaster. He's demanding, but he's going to communicate with you. And you're going to have a good relationship. We'll dive into the recruiting front, and we'll chew on the question here. What is this team actually capable of this year with Nebraska football? Is it 7? Is it 6? Is it 8? But it's also a look. What do they look like in big games? What do they look like in games they're supposed to win? Tim Verghese on the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time at Hail Varsity, a Monday edition. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Tim Verghese with us from Inside Nebraska, Rivals.com, at Tim Verghese on Twitter. Real quick, we had the NCZ, our dear listener, get a tattoo of Hail Varsity on that right back calf. Homemade tattoo. Jeff says, I've got a brand of a cross on my left bicep. Did it with a clothes hanger and an electric stove top. Would not recommend it. It got extremely infected. Gotta love college memories.
Well, we've told the story on the show of my buddy Graham who got branded at youth group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you doing for Saturday? You want to come to group? Elijah, I can just see Elijah turning and running with the youth group pitch. Hey, Elijah, like what you see? Want to come to youth group on Saturday?
It was just a triangle with a clothes hanger, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
That's what it ended up being.
Well,
so.
Jeff got the cross down. Tim, you walked into a weird Monday. How you doing, man?
Tim, have you been branded?
No.
Tim's got a giant Y on his back because he's such a Yellowstone fan.
Is it a rocking Y? Is that what it is in Yellowstone? What is
I think
there?
so.
Yeah.
It's some sort of cool looking Y, unless you're actually like screaming because of the pain. Anywho,
back to business.
Well, pain and missing out on a 5-star. Not quite.
Hell of a transition.
Not
That's
quite
good.
as bad as getting physically.
That's elite. That's
It's physically getting branded, but it's there for a lot of Husker recruiting fans. That said, you've kind of laid this out over the weeks that Nebraska did a great job to enter into this race, Tim, but Mr. Sanders Jr. Really all over Rocky Top, and they were really first and did a job to seal it.
Yeah, they just did a really good job here. And there's I think, and I don't think a lot of people are giving Tennessee their due just yet for what they're doing on the recruiting trail, because they're really building something, and they have a lot of faith in what they're building. I mean, they've already gotten, like, just on top of already having, like, Nico, your franchise, your future quarterback, getting your future left tackle in, and all of these different pieces they've built up. They've secured the quarterback position for 2-3 cycles down the line as well. So they've done a really good job of just stacking talent, and they're poised to take another step, with Nick Saban kind of obviously retiring, and there's that opening here at the top of the SEC. They're very well positioned to kind of stake their claim, at least for the top of that conference.
They're not far removed from 11-2. I mean, they really had a breakthrough. They were knocking on that playoff door under Heupel 2 years ago, injury-prone a season ago. But their schedule's murder. They kind of got a chance to put up or shut up. Similar to Nebraska, Tim, and I want to go here before we get into visit lists and other recruiting, but Nebraska really did a great job of evaluating and then signing all these kids in 2023 that saw time. And I'm talking about Princewell. I'm talking about Lenhart. I'm talking about
Van Poppel.
Thank you. Van Poppel, Malachi.
Yeah, you can throw Jalen Lloyd in there.
And I was going Lloyd. I've got my list of 2023 guys that not just saw time, but played well. And now they jump into year two. What kind of jump do they make? That's a showcase for Nebraska. Dylan Raiola is a showcase for Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you look at the momentum Tennessee has right now, it's partly NIL, which they got, in order very quickly. But part of that, to get to that point with NIL, was they had to show the fan base that Heupel was serious about winning. That 11-2 season went a long way for them. And in a lot of ways, I think Nebraska, again, just 7-5, 8-4, like just showing you're on a positive trajectory, you could have the same type of impact for Nebraska if on the field, like you're saying, the development is also there, because that's something Tennessee has shown, that they've been able to land elite talent and get them to the league. But they haven't shown necessarily the ability to get these like 3 stars and develop into NFL players. Nebraska has a chance to show that this year and next year, where Tennessee isn't really recruiting like that, and like as in just they're not evaluating like the way Nebraska is and finding these hidden gems to develop. But at the same time, it's like that's something that Nebraska is going to have potentially down the line if they can take care of business on the field.
Tim, do you know how does Tennessee treat their commits? I remember whenever we were talking about Cade Petrak, he wanted to commit to Oklahoma. They said, well, if you commit, you're done taking visits. You can't go anywhere else. You're locked in with us. Cade didn't commit because he wanted to take some more official visits. You see what happens. Takes a trip to Nebraska. Really impressive. Ends up committing to the Huskers. Does Tennessee run it the same way where if you commit to Tennessee, you're done, you're shut down, they don't let you take visits? Or is there a chance that Nebraska, despite the fact that David Sanders is committed to Tennessee, could still get him back into town at some point this fall?
I think there's certainly a chance. I would say especially for a player like David Sanders, Tennessee is not going to make any type of rule like that. Like, you get him how you can, and you put up with what you have to put up in order to keep him. Because the other alternative here is, hey, if you make him visit elsewhere, you're decommitting, and obviously they don't want that either. So for a kid like David Sanders, you absolutely make an exception, but they don't have that rule. That's something like I think Clemson does that. Oklahoma does that. There's a couple other schools. I think Baylor does that. And there's a couple other out there that do that. But again, and I've heard it out there that Nebraska does that as well. Nebraska does not do that. Nebraska's pretty okay with guys making visits elsewhere and landing offers and things like that. They obviously want to keep their guys in-house. But, Jeremiah Jones at the end of July went and made a visit to Missouri, got an offer from Missouri. And, Nebraska hasn't had an issue with that at all. They're just trying to keep him in the boat, and they understand, hey, you lost your position, coach. Like, go explore what else is out there.
Tim Verghese with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Tim, more on recruiting in a moment, but this is kind of our question of the day. What do you think this Nebraska team in 2024 is capable of? I'm not asking you to put in ink. Tim Verghese says 12-0. I'm asking, though, as you analyze what you've seen and heard from the scrimmages, you look at the schedule, you look at the talent, and you look at the new Big Ten, what's doable for the Big Red here?
Man, I mean, what's doable is I really do think the ceiling is like 2-3 losses. You know what I mean? Like, I think you can get to that point where, I don't think you're beating Ohio State this year. I don't think anyone's beating Ohio State this year. I think Oregon's got the best shot. And you look at the rest of the schedule, USC is going to present you some challenges. They're pretty big up front. They still have some really good talent at receiver, and I think they're going to get back to what Lincoln likes to do best at quarterback, with a guy that, can just get the ball where it needs to be in Miller Moss. Like, not a guy that's going to freelance a whole lot like Caleb. He's going to be more of it's going to be true Lincoln Riley offense again. And I think that USC defense is going to take a significant step up this year. I think those two, you would automatically kind of pencil in as the losses, or at least with USC specifically, I think you play them close, and your hope is you play everybody close this year. But I think those two, if you're looking at 2 losses or 2 almost surefire losses, I would say it's those two. Iowa's obviously going to present a challenge. Wisconsin's going to present a challenge, but I think Nebraska, talent-wise, they just need to show the ability to kind of win some of these close games and get over that hump. If they can do that, which again, I'm sure everyone at this point understands, kind of get over that hump. If you can get over that hump of close games, I think you'll find yourself with a much better record at the end of the season, because I think you're going to end up being in a lot of these one-score close games down the stretch of the season.
With the Dylan Raiola factor, I think we're all expecting at some point in the near future to have Dylan be named the starting quarterback. You talk about the ceiling being potentially somewhere 10-2, 9-3. Does Dylan do more to raise the ceiling this year in your eyes, or does he do more to raise the floor? Because I think traditionally in the Big Ten, you think about it, it's your running attack and your defense that sets the floor of your team, but you also don't have many quarterbacks stepping in as true freshmen like Dylan Raiola coming in. So do you think he raises the floor of this football team, or do you think he raises the ceiling? And the correct answer is probably a little bit of both, but which side do you err more on in terms of what side of that coin, floor or ceiling?
I think year one, I think he raises the floor. I think down the line, he raises the ceiling, if that makes a whole lot of sense. But I think, Elijah, like you said, I think it goes a little bit of both, just in the sense that, a talent like that, again, hypothetically, just based on what we've seen so far, a talent like that should be able to just improve what you're able to accomplish on the field. But I think it is closer to the floor just because there is so much relatively unknown elsewhere with the team right now.
Tim, with this team, what are some questions you still have moving forward? There's some buffering that needs to go on, or buffing out, as Rule put it post-Saturday, where wasn't awful. He wasn't ticked about the scrimmage, but they clearly weren't in mid-season form yet, specifically on offense.
Yeah, I think weirdly enough, and we've kind of harped on this over at Inside Nebraska a little bit, maybe too much at this point, but I'm still a little concerned about the cornerback 2 spot just because of how much inexperience there is there right now. I think that's a question that can quickly get answered by mid-year if Jeremiah Charles has taken the step he needs to, if Bly Hill returns to form, if Amari Sanders steps on the field and shows some good stuff in rotational snaps, and Marcus Buford kind of slides back into corner. And I think that there's a path to that question getting answered. I think obviously with Teddy going down, just that left tackle spot remains a question. Just what do you see from Turner? And then, I think at the very top of the receiver room now, you've got like true veteran experience. But beyond that, like, I just want to see how much they can get from some of these hypothetical mismatches. Your Malachi Coleman's, your Carter Nelson's, Ja'Cory Barney's, like those types. Like, how much can you get out of those guys, and how are you able to fit all these pieces into an offense that, at times last year just was not just didn't have an identity, And so obviously they have an identity now. They have a vision of what they want to do with it. But I think my big question with this offense moving forward is just making sure all of these guys are satisfied and fed, and making sure you're getting the ball into the right hands play after play.
It's Tim Verghese with us here. And Tim, last thought here this segment, in terms of identity, what do you think the identity is? You kind of alluded to that this team's going to have more of an identity. I think it's going to be centered around Raiola. What do you think that identity is as we're less than 2 weeks out from kickoff?
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of, I think it's a lot of chipping away at you before you take it over the top. I think you're going to see a lot of just RPOs built off of the run game. You're going to see a lot of just steady, just leaning on the stable of running backs. I think the ball's going to move through the middle. I think Fidoni's going to be heavily featured. I wouldn't be surprised if Thomas Fidoni ends the year as the guy with the most receptions in the offense. But I think you're going to see the offense do that, and then second and long, third and long type situations, first and long where we think we've got them on their heels, we're going to throw it over the top. You know what I mean? Like that type of stuff. Where I think they're going to chip away at you slowly, and then when you least expect it, kind of throw it over, which is what you kind of see. The way they build out some of the deep passing game, it's not 4-5 wide, it's 3-2 wide, and then you're kind of building off of some play action. You're building off of an RPO look, and you're just giving a lot of eye candy to the defense where you have a Jalen Lloyd or an Isaiah Neyor streaking downfield.
Tim Verghese, Inside Nebraska Rivals, at Tim Verghese on Twitter. More with Tim next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Good stuff with Tim Verghese, Inside Nebraska Rivals.com. At Tim Verghese on Twitter. Yes, it is overtime with Tim. And we'll get back to some recruiting. So with Sanders going to Tennessee, Tim, Nebraska's board looks like what? What are some priorities here to round out the 2025 class?
Yeah, they're still after Michael Terry. And I think just that position is kind of what you're going to see them really circling on down the stretch of this cycle. Is still trying to find that big body outside receiver, that playmaking wide receiver to kind of complement what else they've built in that room. If it's not Terry, I think they're still going to continue to kick the tires with Cortez Mills to try and flip him from Oklahoma. I think something to keep an eye on there. Obviously, Oklahoma's entering the SEC. Just early buzz from camp has not been super promising of just what that team could potentially look like. And so they could be in for a disappointing year one in the SEC. I think it could cause a couple people in that class to potentially look around Cortez potentially among them. So I think Nebraska's going to keep that relationship going, see if they can do something there with both of those guys, see what they can do to try and flip them. I'm curious to see if John Butler decides to make any new offers, and I think Nebraska could afford to get another cornerback, a true cornerback this class. I think they're going to keep swinging on some of these high-end offensive tackles, see if they can get someone to kind of join this crew. They've got not a couple options, but guys that are committed, they're going to try and flip. But, I mean, for the most part, they've kind of turned the page almost to 26. I mean, especially quarterback, obviously, you're pretty much done with quarterback recruiting now. You've kind of turned the page to 26. You're seeing it with the skill positions and the trenches as well. They're kind of turning the page to what they believe is going to be a more fruitful class for Nebraska just because of what they believe they'll accomplish on the field and where, from a recruiting standpoint, it just kind of works out that way sometimes. Like they couldn't really capitalize on Dylan Rayola's commitment in 24 because he committed. He flipped so late. There just wasn't enough time to go in and flip anybody else. But 2025, it's just the big question is all of these guys are getting commits in before the season. And the biggest question with Nebraska with all of these guys is, can Nebraska win? So they're all committing kind of before even getting a chance to see that. So Nebraska shows some stuff on the field. It'll help them in 26 and can get you some flips in 25, but it won't exactly allow you to fully, take advantage of the kind of the position you're in hypothetically. But with 26 and beyond, I think you have a chance to really build something, if the wins on the field come this fall.
Tim, with 18 verbal commits in the boat, I know you have a very young roster right now, tons of freshmen and sophomores currently on the team, a potential 105 roster cap coming. Does that affect anything? How many guys do you think Nebraska is going to have in this class? If everything goes to plan, what's the number you think that could be their max this class?
I don't think there's a number necessarily, just because they've kind of blown past my hypothetical number that I've kind of set for the last two classes. And I think they're going to continue doing that. This is a staff that, is going to keep, turning over as many rocks as they can to find as much talent as they can. But this class, I think, is going to end up just being smaller just because of how much they added specifically this last cycle and kind of this 105 limit coming up and what they want to do. I think that's part of the reason why I say they're kind of turning this page too, is typically with 18, there's about 7 or 8 spots still left to use. I think they're really going to hone in on maybe 3 to 5 guys down this final stretch, try and fill out with 3 to 5 more high school scholarship guys, and then potentially use the portal if they can. I think Nebraska's not necessarily hoping, but again, on-field results could make you an attractive transfer portal destination where you've got a young quarterback, where a guy that wants a new situation or wants to be more featured in an offense can step into a team that is potentially losing, or for sure losing Jamal Banks, but potentially losing Isaiah Neor as well after this season.
Tim, last thought here. Tim Verghese, Inside Nebraska, at Tim Verghese on Twitter with Rivals, and check his workout, YouTube, and of course the Rivals Inside Nebraska site with his recruiting roundup. His blitz is must listen to. So Tim, Boulder, Nebraska, Colorado. I mean, it is going to be incredible in 2 weeks from Saturday with Prime and the Buffs rolling to town. As a guy who grew up going to Nebraska, Colorado, you smile that they get to play again, maybe for the last time in a while. That being said, it is going to be a who's who. It is super advantageous to have a night game like that, but is Nebraska already just getting all sorts of RSVPs, man?
Yeah, I put it out today. This was a bit of a surprise for me as well, but 2026 4-star Miami linebacker commit is planning to be up here for the game. We've got Ian Premer. He's a top tight end from Kansas, going to be one of the top tight ends in the class. He's going to be in Nebraska for the game. And I picked this up this weekend, and I kind of I hinted at it last week. talking about this weekend, the Michael Taylor recruitment remains really interesting just because there's a couple different sources I've got that say a couple different things, but I've got it on pretty good authority that if this recruitment goes on into the season and he's uncommitted, he's got the Nebraska-Colorado game circled to see a night game at Nebraska. And he's also got Nebraska-Ohio State circled, 2 games he'd potentially want to be at this fall if he remains uncommitted. So Michael Terry, I think, would be the headliner. I think as we get closer to that game, though, I think you're going to see some names pop up. I've been messaging with a bunch of I sent like 50 different guys messages just to see where they're at with season scheduling. So guys are still putting lists together, but the majority of guys I messaged today were like, "Hey, Nebraska's on my list. I just don't have a date just yet." But a lot of guys have that Colorado game circled. They want to be in attendance for that. And again, if they're not seeing it in person, they're going to see it on TV because it is obviously a national broadcast.
Jordan Campbell, the stud backer out of Miami, going to see Nebraska, Colorado. And then last thought, Jackson Cantwell, the 5-star 2026. How's Nebraska with him?
Nebraska's still working there, and I think something that I think is going to end up working in Nebraska's favor there is, again, just the proximity. Like, the more I get a read on that recruitment, and as we kind of turn this page, the more I do believe proximity is going to end up being a factor here because I think he realizes he's got some really good options closer to home. But at the same time, I think Oregon's trending in a positive way right now. USC is right there as well. Georgia's right there as well. Like, this is going to be a fight till the very end. But Nebraska's well positioned there. I think they're going to get him on campus at least once or twice this fall. Again, he's one to keep an eye on. I think that Colorado game, he's got a close eye. I think he's just finalizing his schedule right now to figure out where he wants to be. But that Colorado game, I know he's got an eye on as a potential option to come visit Nebraska for his second game.
Tim Verghese with his Inside Nebraska Rivals at Tim Verghese. Tim, you take care. Thank you for the time, man.
Yes, sir. Of course. Thank you. We'll talk next week.
There he is. All right. Tim Verghese. Love it. Good intel.
Is he good? Man.
He's money, man. All over recruiting. Talk some ball as well. We got to shout out Brett. He is in. Moonbot made it in the stream. You're invited. Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Like and subscribe there. Can watch the show. Be part of the some football thoughts community-wise. Chats going on. Shows going on, of course. Sexy Grinch, formerly known as Crew. So we have a Crew sighting. Always kind of makes me smile with Crew. Crew, I'm going to be back at the gym. That is awesome. I've been cleared to actually get on the treadmill with real shoes.
When does the boot come off?
I had the good shout out Nebraska Orthopedic. Mm-hmm. They're awesome. They're incredible. They're like, dude, you can take the boot off.
But you still have it on.
I have it on because I didn't have my other shoe with me.
Just looking for pity points today, huh?
Sure. I'm going to show up with a right boot tomorrow. I'm going to snore too loud. Mama's going to get that velvet hammer out. Go to town on my right ankle. Misery.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Coming up, Charlie McBride and Jay Moore, a Monday with Charlie. We'll get to more of your stream comments with Hail Varsity on the StreamYard and YouTube channel. Hail Varsity YouTube. Like and subscribe there. Podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Hail Varsity Radio. Give us a rating, good, bad, or ugly. Be happy to take the feedback from you. Big thanks for doing that as we are gearing up for another season of Husker football. Excited that season's almost near. Reminder to get buckled up. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives. It prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make it click. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. So, Elijah, you asked the offensive identity question to Tim Verghese. And if you hear the podcast, you can check all of Tim's work with recruiting and some thoughts. We'll talk to Charlie and try and answer that question here. You know, what's this team capable of? And I think this team's capable of finding themselves. And what I mean by that is they're going to have that adversity hit in game. And there's going to be a moment in time this season. Might be against Colorado. could be against Rutgers. There'll be a point where they stop blinking. And when they stop blinking, they go make a play. Something good happens. Similar to the Illinois goal line stand. You saw that early momentum and then the belief kind of filter through. But they're going to have some parts to go along with, all right, you got one side of the football, the defense, that's as good as advertised. Wonderful. Now you have an offense you can lean on a little bit that can go do some things. See if kicking gets worked out. We'll talk to Coach Foley tomorrow. And, yeah, there's going to be a lot of ball games that are going to be tight. They're going to have that breakthrough. That breakthrough will lead to not always close wins, but more times than not, a shift in mentality where that here we go again, that doubt finally gets stepped on.
Well, I think it's simple. Like, Husker fans will be satisfied if this team just plays up to its potential this year. Like, in terms of what is this team capable of, that's like the low bar that I think this team can easily. What are they capable of? Playing up to their potential. What does that mean in terms of win-loss? Not quite sure. I think you have to let other teams
go win 8 ball games, and if you drop a few, it's because someone made a play against you versus you stepping on your own foot.
And that's what it is to me, because there's been so many years of this Husker team where we talk about it preseason, the potential, and then the season rolls around and they're so far from where their potential is. This team's got very, very good potential. Just play up to their potential. I think Husker fans will be satisfied.
Eat beef, possibly with one of the comments of the year. Eat Beef says, from an identity standpoint, I hope the defensive identity is like Cocaine Bear.
It makes sense. Like, that's actually a good defensive identity.
Sure.
I mean, it worked for LT. He was smoking crack before practice, and you saw what it did for him on the football field.
I don't know that is entirely accurate about LT before practice. Maybe
he said it in this like a 60 Minutes interview that he was smoking crack before practice. Not before games, but
I think the urban legend is teams would send ladies of the night to LT. They'd find his hotel room. LT'd have a visitor. LT'd, maybe have 4 visitors in one night, and he'd go out and have 4 sacks. Don't start that trend.
Look up the crack thing, though.
This is Christian Peter. I'm sorry, but the stories I have about Charlie are not appropriate for the public.
The right case of the Mondays. It's Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, on Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and Red Wine 65 is in the stream. Good to have him. And we were talking about with Nebraska here, what's this team capable of? And Red Wine says no choking this year. Tight ball game. It's going to be apparent. Just saw a couple of clips from Coach Rule today with Jim Rome and his show on X. And some good thoughts on the Big Ten, the league that Nebraska is in, and what makes Dylan Raiola special. Always special to have Coach McBride with us Monday with Charlie. Coach, just a week away from game week. You feeling it?
Hell, yeah, it's kind of this automatic.
Yeah.
It doesn't even tell me the month or anything. You just know it's there this time. I don't know how you do it, but it is.
I bet it is. It's go time, and a lot to cover. So I wanted to ask you, as Matt Rule has talked to us the last couple of Saturdays, they've had scrimmages. They're going over film. They're trying to determine some spots, i.e. the quarterback or who's playing well at that opposite cornerback spot. You're seeing guys really jump that first year to second year, some of your big-time recruits. But when you were evaluating and getting ready to make your determinations, if you had a real tight race, what was that like with somebody that was going to start and almost a lot of alternative starters? You had guys that may not be starting the first snap, but they're playing 30 snaps a game for you. How was that process for you to break down who was going to be your starting 11?
Well, of course, the quarterback's a little different, but most of the guys know that in some positions, mostly line positions, and as a receiver, that there's going to be you can do some rotation pretty easy, and fit the third guy in there, the third at each position. So, what do you have? 4 receivers. Say you can have 4 receivers and 5 if you want to throw the quarterback around. But the thing that's important, I think, is important that you're honest with them. As honest as you can, and what I mean brutally honest. I mean, there's no. This isn't time to be trying to make up something that this isn't true. So if you're true with them, and they may get upset for a minute, and for 15 minutes, or maybe who knows how long. But the thing is they'll appreciate it later on in life. And they'll see. I've had how many guys call me and say, Coach, you were right, and I was, and I want to apologize and all that kind of stuff. And but that to me is the most important thing you can do on a football team, is be honest with your players. And as soon as they find out you're not an honest person, then it's over. It's null and void, So I just be honest with every one of them. And the thing that happens most of all, especially when you get to I had positions where we could rotate and tell them they're going to rotate. Now, I've had positions where guys have played second team and played more snaps than the guy in first team. And I can show you that. I can document that. So I use it a little bit once in a while, but it's the idea that you're every 2 series. If a guy is going 3 and out in that first series and he has 3 and out in the second, he gets 6 plays. The second team goes in and plays 20 plays. So how it goes that way with linemen and stuff like that, but it doesn't with quarterbacks. Now the thing too is, I personally think that he's going to go with. Somehow he's going to that second quarterback's going to get some work. Yeah, and I don't think there's going to be a problem there. The problem is this: they're young, and when they're talking about one guy all the time, it kind of wears on you. And so you kind of need to treat that second quarterback, at least now, with kid gloves, and you need to be careful what you say and what you come up with.
Coach, how difficult is that evaluation process, not being able to see guys in a game during fall camp? Like, that's a part of the process. Is there's guys, I think back to Tim Tebow with the Denver Broncos, where the coaching staff essentially said, what you see on Sundays, that's not how he practices. This was tough for us to evaluate, because he's a different player whenever the lights are bright, whenever he's on the field, he's actually playing in a game. How much do you factor in the first couple games in that evaluation process?
Well, you have to evaluate. You put a lot of evaluation in it. And, sometimes you put a guy in the game, a third in the game, and say, let's get him in for a couple of plays. And all of a sudden he's a wild man. And it screws your whole business up. But the thing I think is when you do, and especially when you have an upperclassman and a lowerclassman, I think, and honestly, I tell them I favor the upperclassman. There's no reason. He's been here. He's busted his chops for all these years, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of what I've done. And but again, it goes back to the same thing. It goes back to telling them the truth and like I said, being brutally honest. I mean, sometimes you have to. You have to say, "Hey, you're second team," and that's the way it is. I had guys quit. Quit the team, and then they came back later, but and begged their way back on the team. But That's a hard thing to do, and a hard thing for other players to understand what you're doing, unless you tell them in the beginning. And in the beginning is the basics. In other words, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you that some things you don't like, and so on and so forth.
Charlie McBride is with us. A Monday with Charlie. We get ready for Nebraska kickoff 2024 in a little more than a week. Coach, we've been chewing on this question all show, and I've laid out and Elijah's laid out. We think this team's capable of turning the corner from a mentality standpoint in some close games. That Colorado game could be that first step. What do you believe this team is capable of? I'm not trying to pin you down on a win total, but what do you think this second year can be for this group of guys, and a lot of them that came back?
Well, I tell you what, a lot of them are PO'd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're not going to stand for it. And what's going to happen is if there's somebody loafing, these guys are going to jump in their frame like you can't believe. And I mean, they're going to let them know if they don't think they're working out there, they're going to let them have it. And they've had enough of this, this 2 point and 1 point and 3 points and kicking field goals the last thing that beat them and this and that. They've had enough of that. And I think that the older guys are going to take over. The guys that have been around a while are going to, whether it's a quarterback or not, they're going to let them have it. And, they might say some things they don't like, but they're going to tell them what they think. And I've never had them really get after a quarterback too much, but, when you got a freshman starting in there, you don't know what they're going to say. Mm-hmm. But they need to be warned. All the young guys need to be warned that these old guys been around here a long time and been through a bunch of crap, and they're not going to do it.
It's Coach Charlie McBride with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Coach, how do you think a fan, as he or she, I should say, watches the first couple games of the year, what are some things that they can watch for on the football field to see whether this team has the leadership in place that you need to be able to go out and win football games, especially in the Big Ten? What can the average fan look for?
You look at the little things, and a lot of people don't look at. Look at the offensive line. Look at this guy finishing his block. Is he just going down to the ground if the guy gets off of him and he's just standing around, or is he getting up and getting somebody else? Is he? And the second guy's on defense, and the same thing happens there. How are guys reacting after the ball, to the ball? Are they look at? If you're on one side of the field and the ball's running down the other side, you see a guy standing there, I'm going to bust his chops when he comes to the sideline, because he could be over there and it could be a fumble and he could recover it, or it could be a pass interception and the guy gets hit in the mouth and drops the ball, and you're over on the other side of the field playing brownies and fairies. Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff that you look for. You look for that second effort that kid's got in him, and you're going to find out. That's one thing you might find out on young men.
Mm-hmm. Coach, we'll wind down with this. Charlie McBride with us, a Monday with Charlie. The cycle of losing. It's gone on for a long time here in Lincoln, and I think we're all kind of surprised by it. There's urgency with Coach Rule. There's urgency we heard from you about, and these upperclassmen, these seniors. But from a getting it done standpoint, tell me what the coaches and the players can do together to stop this slide Nebraska's been on.
Well, the coaches are going to do their normal song and dance, and try to pump them up and really get them ready to play, and be thoughtful of all the things that have gone wrong and so on and so forth. But the seniors are going to be the guys, the older guys are going to be the guys that are running this football team. Yeah. I'll promise you. And when the ball snapped, I tell you, there better be a wall come in there, and the back better think that everything in the stadium fell on them, because that's the way they have to play on defense. And offense, they have to catch the ball. There's guys that say, "Oh, I can't catch it; it's over my head." Well, how about trying to catch it? And you know what? You'll surprise yourself once in a while. And so those are the little things that they haven't done. Try to stretch them, make them better than they think they can be.
Mm-hmm. Charlie, we had a comment in the stream back in hour 1 saying the defensive identity needs to be that of a bear on cocaine. Is that a fair asking or a fair ask for how you want your defense to play?
Okay. Well, I don't know about that stuff, but I remember when the Marines were on the bennies, Benzedrine, I guess that's what they call it, but they were sucking some balloons after a while. I mean, we got these guys right out of the service. In fact, they played the Rams the week before, 3 of them, and they came and played with us. I think they were all on drugs for a while, and then they got in shape, and they cut it out. But and it's one of those things. I think that you will see some players that look like and that's the way. If that is what makes them go, they'll act like it, because they got to get it done, and you'll see some extra effort come out of everybody. All the players, their scrimmages are one thing, but I mean, when the ball snaps, they should be guys all over the place and concentrate on your focus on what you're supposed to do. Focus, and everything on defense or offense, and what you're supposed to do, one play at a time. And it's a joke. It's been said a million times. But the one play you could screw it up, and the next play you could be a hero.
Yeah.
And that's just the way the game goes.
Play possessed. Coach, you take care, and we'll check in with you next week for Nebraska and UTEP. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm glad I'm not there. I don't think I'd make it through the week. I'm too old. I think I'd blow up before the week started. So
we'll all pace ourselves. I promise.
I'll check you guys out too. I'm going to check you out to see if you're okay as we get closer to game time.
We'll be all right, Coach. Appreciate you much. Thanks for giving us some time today.
Oh, okay, guys. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks, Coach.
There he is, Mr. Blackshirt. Charlie McBride, a Monday with Charlie. The cocaine bear reference.
I had to go there.
I know, but for Charlie's like, yeah, dudes came out of the service. Something were in the balloons. That's away we go. We'll keep the Blackshirt Hour rolling with Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFLer, as we'll check in with Jay Bird, get his thoughts. And and we'll get to some of your comments as well in the stream, Hail Varsity YouTube. A lot of you are on here. Appreciate you doing that. Hail Varsity Radio Twitter. Give that a follow at HVarsity Radio. Find Elijah on Twitter at Herbalessence at Schmidt_radio. And can always download the podcast if you missed part of Charlie or all of Charlie or want to hear it again. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Blackshirt Jay up next with Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Is Dudeness or Duder or El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. The Blackshirt Hour continues. Blackshirt Husker NFLer co-host Big Red Wrap-Up Jay Moore at JMoore44 on Twitter. Had a chance to wave to Jay Bird and Junior working on some football routes Sunday afternoon. Jay Bird, how'd it go, or did the rain wash it away?
No, talking about the football yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't have practice. It got canceled yesterday, so we were actually practicing before, but yeah, that unfortunately practice got rained out. So we were back out there later, getting some more routes in. But he was bummed. Matt was bummed that practice was canceled. He loves practicing and doing all that stuff. But we got still a couple weeks for our first game, so we got a couple more weeks to get some practice in and see if and see the attention span of the second graders of playing the first flag football game.
Well, and Jay, we all remember the Peyton Manning Saturday Night Live skit where he's you throw that football as hard as Peyton did. Mav's bulletproof, man. I mean, he's got some hands. As hard as you throw the ball at him.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
Well, I'll check it out every now and then. He wants to be tested. He's like, Dad, throw it harder. I'm like, all right, I will. You're not going to catch it, but I'll put some more zip on it. So he likes to be tested. So that's good. That's a good thing. Jay, he doesn't want the easy way.
My question with this though is you guys are Nebraskans. Why are you practicing throwing the ball instead of running the damn ball?
Yeah, well, it's not very fun to take a handoff from Dad in the front yard and run. It's better to take some routes. Trust me, I'm all for running the football, but it's not very entertaining to just take a handoff and run. He wants to run some routes and catch it and then do the gritty afterwards every time he thinks he scores a touchdown.
You got to get the blocking sled set up in the backyard. Is what you got to do. Really put him to work.
Oh, it's there. I drove by. The blocking sled's up. Jay Moore's with us. Jay, so let's talk about you and the U.S. Open, that pursuit. Just give folks a reset when it comes to Nebraska Amateur. You've won that title before. On your way back from Beatrice, man, you were competing a little earlier today.
Yeah, so not quite the U.S. Open. It's called it's the U.S. Mid-Am, still ran by the USGA. And the Mid-Am is golfers that are 25 and older. So it kind of removes your college and high school kids out of it. It's mainly for guys who are, have jobs and families and have a living, and they're not doing this, as close to professionally as some of these high schools and juniors and college players are. I've been close. I've actually qualified for it before and made match play during it, and haven't sniffed it in the last couple of years. But my game's kind of getting better after surgery, and played okay. I was in a 3-for-1 play, or am I saying that right? Yeah, 3-for-1 playoff. I shot 2 under. I was 3 under going to the last hole. I bogeyed the last hole, but made it to the first playoff hole. And then Gene Elliott was actually in the field in the playoff. And anybody knows amateur golf, Gene Elliott, he's from Des Moines, is one of the best amateurs in the game, and a senior amateur. He's won the British senior am before, and he's a legend in the game. And so he was in the playoff, and a young kid that played college golf at Stanford that lives in Dallas now. So Gene bogeyed the first hole, and me and this other young guy that lives in Dallas now, we parred, and then we both birdied the next hole. And then the third playoff hole, I gave it a good run for my birdie look, and he made it. So he got the last spot, and I'm an alternate for the 2024 U.S. Mid-Am, which is somewhere in Virginia in late September, early October. So I gave her hell. I played well enough, so it's fun to be in the mix and get the blood flowing, the juices flowing, and who knows, I might still be able to get in as alternate. But now I'm driving back to go to the office for an hour or so tonight. so the real world is checking in.
Jay, 25 years old being the cutoff. I'm 25 years old. Are you concerned about me getting into the field next year? Do I pose a threat?
No.
Now, to be fair, Elijah did hit one 290 yards this weekend, so he tells me.
I bounced it out of bounds, though, so does it really matter?
Well, hey, it's something, right? You got to start somewhere. Distance is a plus. Being able to hit far, but you got to hit it far and straight. The word is you drive for accuracy and you putt for distance. People think that's funny to say, but it's so true. You got to putt for distance and you drive for accuracy. It's kind of backwards.
Well, I will take notes on both after my weekend of golf, and Away we go. Jay Moore is with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Jay, you're getting geared up. Pretty soon you'll have the first Big Red wrap-up of the season on Nebraska Public Media. And how you feeling going into this? We heard from Rule this weekend. The second Saturday scrimmage. Sounds like there's a little bit of a gap with first-team offense, second-team offense, turnovers versus non-turnovers. And, man, that chase of perfection, or not even perfection, but consistency, it's very real to guys on the team and guys who've played versus folks that cover it and the fan base, because, man, that's what you do. That's what you're spending a year doing, chasing consistency for 12 Saturdays a year, hopefully.
Yeah. We'll do the first show next Tuesday in the brand new studio over on East Campus, so I'm looking forward to that. And I feel pretty good. I was able to watch practice last Friday morning, and I'm telling you, the team looks pretty good. The body types and the guys they have on this roster, it's vastly different than it was just a handful of years ago. They have Sunday bodies on this team. Now they got to still play the right way and do the right things and take care of the football and not commit penalties and stay healthy. But that's kind of the first step. You got to get dudes on the roster first that look like they can play on Sundays, and we definitely are getting that way. But no, I think cautiously optimistic is still something it holds true. But what I like heading in, to this season is the ability to get off to a good start and gather some momentum. Haven't had that first. I don't know. It just seems like whether you're starting in Ireland, you're starting on a Thursday night at Minnesota with the conference game, it just seems like in the years past, it's just hard. You get games rained out because of thunderstorms. It's just been tough to kind of get, your both feet on the ground and get going. And I feel like even though the Colorado game, which will be a tough one, is the second game, but having an opportunity to play UTEP, Colorado, Northern Iowa, Illinois on a short week, but it just feels like you just got a chance to finally get some momentum, gain some confidence, learn how to win a little bit, and so there's something to that. I think initially those first 7 games are all definitely winnable. I think the Rutgers game is going to be tough. I think at Indiana, kind of at the end of that stretch, is going to be a little tough one. And they just got to see how it shakes out in those last 5 games when obviously you got to go to Ohio State and USC and Iowa, but you get UCLA and Wisconsin at home. So I think 7-5, 8-4 is a very, very realistic number for this team. It's just are the same things that have hurt this team in the past going to still be the same thing? Is it turnovers and penalties and injuries? This team is definitely deeper at majority of your positions. Offensive line has gotten a little thinner here in the last week or so, but I think things are trending in the right direction. I think Rule's message is in the right direction. I think guys that could have left that stayed around is a great thing. They're fantastic leaders. They're going to be obviously there through thick and thin, and it's just time, right? It's time to win. It's time to stop feeling sorry about yourself and stop making these mistakes and get back to winning ways. And I'm not saying 12-0, 11-1. I'm just saying, hey, win the games you're supposed to win. When it's getting close to crunch time, you find a way to win them. And even these games that you're kind of up against the wall and maybe you're an underdog, you're fighting there and you have a chance going into the fourth quarter. But this seems, reused for lack of a better term, just seems like it's just moving in the right direction finally. But yet there's still a lot of football obviously to be played, and but I like where things are right now.
It's Jay Moore with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, one of the things Matt Rule alluded to on Saturday was the fact that he might be naming a starting quarterback at some point this week. We can all make our assumptions on who that's going to be, probably Dylan Raiola, given the fact that the second-team offense apparently had some turnover issues. You wonder if that's the final nail in the coffin for the quarterback battle. But as you look at the quarterback position as a whole, building momentum, what does it do to team psyche whenever in the first couple of games of the year you realize as a team, hey, we have a guy behind center that we can trust with the ball in his hands?
Yeah, you'd like to think, right? I mean, you'd like to think that. It's one thing to do it in practice. It's one thing to even maybe do it in the spring game. but he's still got to prove it. If it's Dylan Raiola, then he's still got to prove it against UTEP and Colorado and Northern Iowa and those early in the year. That's just you can't mimic. Like I always say, live bullet reps, man. You don't know how guys are going to think when it really matters. We don't know how Dylan Raiola is going to think and operate when it matters, when someone's out there, and it matters where the ball goes, and it matters incomplete passes and tip balls and him getting hit and knowing he can get hit. As a quarterback, you can stand back there pretty comfortably in practice, knowing you're not going to get hit. So all these things have to come into full and grasp for him, and we don't know what that looks like yet. After the Monday we talked after UTEP, I think we'll have a better understanding who Dylan Raiola is as a QB. I think he's already a fantastic quarterback, and I think he's going to do really good for us this year. But we don't know what he is until it really matters. But I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see it when it matters. I think he's going to be damn good when it matters. I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong. And I think he has that ability about him. But I can't wait to see the young kid get out there and prove himself, because it's going to be fun to watch.
A little bit more with Jay Moore. The Blackshirt Hour continues. Coach McBride got us kicked off. Jay Moore, part one. We'll spend more time with Jay Bird on his way rocking and rolling back from Beatrice. Excited to spend time with Blackshirt Jay. We'll have a second part of this interview with Jay on the way. Good stuff from Tim Verghese earlier in the show, recruiting. And we're diving into what's this team capable of. Nebraska for 2024. More with Jay Moore on the way. It's Hail Varsity, and we're powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Jay Moore's with us. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Husker NFLer, and of course Big Red Wrap-Up co-host Jay Moore at JMoore44 on Twitter. Jay, I want to talk about this cycle of losing, breaking that cycle. If you're Nebraska, it's been 7+ years. It's been a tough decade. You've got some guys on the team that, and I think a GIF specifically, that are back. Robinson is back. These guys want to come back and leave it not only culturally set in cement, but also in that win-loss record where you are part of the postseason, and maybe it's a good postseason. What is that like for guys to come in to a winning program, and what's the responsibility as you hand it off?
Yeah, that's tough, because when I left Nebraska in 2006, and I thought I handed off to in a good way. Obviously, the season didn't end the way we wanted it, but, losing in the Big 12 championship and losing to Auburn in the Cotton Bowl. But I thought, okay, things seem to be trending in the right direction now defensively. Up front, we just lost too many guys, and it just wasn't the cards. But it's hard. If things start going the right way, and this team is winning football games and, getting ranked and playing more meaningful football games and winning and doing the right things, it's one thing to kind of voice your leadership. It's just leading by example. I think is really important. Coach Rule talks about the process all the time. You got to love the process, be obsessed with the process. People always say, if you love the process will love you back. So you have to just be totally engulfed and almost OCD-like in the process, in your routine, and doing things the right way, and handling your business the right way, and doing everything the right way. Because that's how you win. That's how you win. You don't win by luck and just kind of doing whatever you want. No, you got to win. You got to be fully attentive in meetings. You got to be fully attentive in walkthroughs. And so when it comes to crunch time, when it comes to when you're tired and you're breathing, your heart rate is through the roof, and you got to still have the ability to think and think under pressure. And that's how you start winning football games, is just fully ingraining yourself in that process. And I think they're doing that right now. But the hard part is it's tough to keep committing to that process when you're not winning. So hopefully these guys are going to start seeing kind of the fruits of their labor. So I think they're working their tails off, and I think they're doing the right things. But they need to get some ROI on these efforts. And I don't think they're going to get, they're going to be diminished at all if they lose a couple football games early on. But it's just time. It's time to win, and it's time to guys these efforts and everything. The effort they're putting in is to get some rewards. And then once you see these rewards come from the process and the attention to detail, man, and then winning's the greatest drug in the world. And you're willing to do, if you think whatever you did before worked, you're going to want to try to do it 2 to 3 times X more because you want to win that much more. So they got to get some wins because gun's rather addictive, and then you can pass it on to the young kids. Like, hey, look at what we were able to accomplish. Look at our process was, and look what happened. We finally started winning some football games. We were doing things the right way. Process and just leading by example, I think, is probably the best way.
Jay, fair to say in your eyes, though, that on the flip side of that, like the time whenever the leaders truly need to step forward on the team and take control is whenever things do go wrong. And things are going to go wrong for this football team. Even if you start the season on a winning streak, there's going to be times where things go wrong for the team. Fair to say that that's whenever the leaders truly step forward and show themselves, show what they've learned over the last couple of years. Whenever the tough times come, they lead from the front.
Oh, for sure. You gotta lead from the front as these older guys, and I'm pretty sure Isaac Gifford will be the one that's going to be kind of leading this charge when things, when what hits the fan, because it's going to hit the fan at some point. It always does, and it always will. But you got to be up there in front and tell these guys, like, hey, we're not doing this again. Don't mentally don't go to, here we go again. Start the turnovers, the penalties. Don't go there. You got to have the ability to battle and fight those demons in your head and continue to fight. And I think whether it's Isaac, Ben Hart, Nash, Ty Robinson, you just got to go down the list. Buford, Singleton, a lot of these guys who have been through the ringer with injuries and so on and so forth. I think they're going to be right there, leading from the front, and it's going to be fun to see that. I mean, I don't want. Obviously, I'd like the things to go smoothly, but it's not going to happen that way. There's going to be times where they're going to be losing to someone they probably shouldn't lose to. They're going to have to battle out of it and fight out. And those guys will be right there making the plays. That's the biggest thing. When stuff is going crooked and crazy, those guys are going to be the ones that are going to make the plays and get the momentum changed and back on our side to get things going to the right way. So I feel rather confident about that, and I can't wait to see those guys step up and make it happen.
Jay Moore's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Jay, will get you out on this. You have a really impressive recruiting class that showed up as freshmen in 2023. Great contributions by Lloyd and Coleman, Princewell, Van Poppel, Cam Lenhart, guys that were in that blue chip range of 4-star or above. That was a nice showing. That jump from, all right, you showed that you can play at this level and perform a little bit, now doing it on a consistent basis. If you see these guys that are just second-year dudes helping hands-on with winning, that can also pay dividends in recruiting. What type of year, how big a year is it for these second-year guys?
Oh, it's huge. Whether they played extensively, didn't play, redshirt, no, it's big because you're going to have plenty of opportunities to prove yourself. And when that opportunity is kind of presented, you got to be ready to grasp it. You want to be fully prepared as possible. You're hoping you're doing things the right way, but it's, again, these young kids. When you come in, everybody in high school, like wherever you went, you're more than likely the best player on your team. You thought you probably always worked hard. Realize you didn't work that hard at all, and kind of again ingraining yourself in this process. That it's hard. Tough times, create tough people, and you got to, again, just it's a weird ways, but you got to be obsessed with making it hard for yourself, not in a good way, right? And testing yourself and competing with yourself and competing with your other teammates. That's the young players. That's where you have to get, and it's hard too because you can lack some confidence early on. Because it's just not going your way. You're not the big dog anymore. You're not seeing the playing field, so you can kind of you can feel sorry for yourself. But the good ones don't feel sorry for yourself. It's like how you get pissed off because you're not playing and you want to compete. You want to do more. You want to take the extra mile because you want to play. You want to be that guy. You want that black shirt. You want to be the guy catching those touchdown passes. So it's just understanding that, that inner battle with yourself and not getting too frustrated, not getting your confidence down, but just every day you show up and you just want to get that 1% better. It don't matter what it is. Like I said, recovery, weight room, eating right, whatever it is, just trying to do something better every day. And it's funny how, in the end, for a lot of guys, I think process and not getting too frustrated yourself is what's most important as a young player who maybe had played or didn't play, but kind of going to their second or even their third year.
Jay Bird, will talk again soon as game week will be upon us, and thanks for a few minutes today.
Yep, you got it, boys.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Thanks to all of you in the stream and hearing us on the Hail Varsity Radio Network. And catching up with us also on Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Give that a follow. In Omaha, make a beeline to see your friends Schick and Nick. Their live pod gets rolling here in about 6 minutes, the La Vista location. So we love catching up with Schick from time to time. Big Nick Baugh guys as well. And they're going to do their live pod thing, year 3, which is awesome. Really cool for that show, that pod, 2 national incredible personalities that are going to find their way to the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, La Vista, 6 o'clock live pod. So I can't tell you if there's anything available. I know they were getting seats reserved months ahead of time. I will not be bouncing. I'm still in my walking boot. So there's shame there, and I feel it. But, hey, have a hell of a good show and go catch the fellas tonight at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, 6 o'clock, La Vista location. So check those dudes out. They're incredible. Tomorrow, we'll spend time with Brad Edwards, college football insider. Brad, awesome perspective on both leagues as long as he was with ESPN. Get his view on the Big Red, but also the Bama reality of life without Saban and just how things can shake out. Florida State, Georgia Tech, kickoff Saturday. Our buddy old Jeff Colhane, hopefully he's at the Guinness factory right now with FSU. Not the team, but just enjoying himself. Tomorrow, Mitch Sherman. Mitch will release the Fury. Mitch with the Athletic. How about the voice of Husker volleyball? John Baylor. John Baylor's wearing his Expos hat yesterday on the golf course. And John hits the golf ball like he's dialed in on a 3-2 fastball. Just murders it. I want that swing. I want that fury. As hard as he swings, he connects and just smokes it. Smokes it far and straight.
Well, we'll get some of that fury tomorrow. I want to get his honest opinion of your golf game.
We're going to have to send John Baylor some incentive. Just lie about me. In a good way, John.
Well, that'll be good tomorrow. Before we get out of here, Schmitty, I do want to ask you the quick question. We have about 60 seconds left here. My college fantasy football draft is tonight. Which one Husker on the offensive side of the ball do you think I should target in this college fantasy draft tonight? If there's one player you think might perform comparatively to the rest of the country at his position, which Husker do you think is going to give me the best value? It's tough.
Palmer? Trey?
Current Huskers.
Current. Okay, I was thinking NFL. Forgive me.
Yeah.
I think you go get Fedoni. I think you snag Fedoni.
Okay, because I think I'm going to be in line for Dylan Gabriel in the first round. I think that's going to be a fantastic pick. Hoping I can get one of the 2 Ohio State running backs in the second round. And beyond that, I've done zero prep.
Now, you get Travion if you can.
Mm-hmm.
You go get yourself Dylan for sure. He's only started 6,000 college games. Sorry, I had a brain blockage there with Trey. Why not?
We'll see. He might be available. It could be a good sleeper.
Trey Palmer in the NFL is what I was saying. But no, I think you go big on Fedoni. He's going to have a hell of a good year. Back tomorrow at 4 with Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.